Hello, Scoliosis Dialogue listeners. This is Cynthia Nguyen from Shriners Medical Center in Pasadena, California. Today's podcast episode is to discuss the upcoming IMAST 2024 meeting that will take place April 10th to 13th in beautiful San Diego, California. Registration just opened up and it'll be open until March. I have the pleasure of chatting with Dr. Eric Klineberg, who is Chief of Spine Surgery and Vice Chair of Orthopedic Surgery at UT Houston, and this year's IMAST Committee Chair. He's also Chair-elect of AO Spine North America this year and Director at Large and on the Board of Directors at SRS. Dr. Klineberg, you're definitely a very busy person. Thank you so much for setting some time aside to be on this podcast, even if it means that you've just landed from a long flight and you're literally still at the airport.
Cynthia, it's so great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Before we delve into some highlights and details about the upcoming IMAST meeting, I'd like our listeners to get to know you a little bit. How did you get interested in spine surgery to begin with?
I was interested in orthopedics early. I was, played sports and as a young man, and that got me interested initially in orthopedics. And then spine surgery was really something that I got excited about when I was at the University of Washington doing my residency. And it just struck me as fun in that it was hard. We didn't know a lot about what we were doing, how we were doing it. And the impact that we had on patients' lives was so profound that I just got excited about playing some small role in that. And the adult side and the pediatric side just has always been, rewarding and fulfilling to be able to help those kids and adults.
That's awesome. And I know your patients and colleagues and the professional community really appreciate that. I personally have appreciated your help on some really, really hard cases. So thank you. As far as your work in our professional societies, how did you become IMAST Committee Chair? What's the path to that? And what was your journey for that?
Yeah, I would say first of all, thank you. You and I have shared some really tough cases. They've been both fun and very challenging. So, and we've had a good time taking care of those folks. That's what all of our passion is ultimately, right? It's taking care of these kids and these adults. There's lots of different ways to get involved and become IMAST chair or get on the board of the SRS. And I'd say everyone's pathway is just a little bit different. I think the answer is there's lots of opportunities to get involved. And the key thing is to raise your hand and volunteer for a committee and see what it's like and see if it speaks to you. I've enjoyed getting to know the organization and the people better. And then getting involved and setting up these meetings is also incredibly rewarding. This is what our society needs to do in terms of educating one another and developing camaraderie with one another, and those are two things that I'm very passionate about.
And IMAST is a really particularly interesting academic meeting because it focuses so much on innovation, and part of that innovation is also sort of evolving the meeting itself. I know there were a lot of pretty big changes in the meeting structure last year. How did those work out, and how did that influence how you planned this year's meeting?
Well, thanks for that question. IMAST is an interesting meeting in that it really started from us trying to educate one another on how to use pedicle screws. And that education couldn't be done in the United States. And so we had to look for other meetings where we could educate ourselves. And kind of looking back on that legacy and thinking about what are the things that we need to educate ourselves about more, we really wanted to refocus this meeting in particular on innovation. And we think and look at all the things that are happening in our field right now: artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics. And so there are so many things that are happening right now that we felt that we wanted to take some of those things from the other meetings and bring them here so we could really talk about that together.
That's awesome. And I know with last year's meeting, you've added some really kind of interesting things. For example, a whole innovation day on Saturday. How did that go? I mean, it must have gone well. We're doing it again, but yeah, give us a summary of the impact on that last year.
Yeah, the Innovation Day is really an opportunity for our industry partners to help reach out to surgeons and their partners and really start to talk about how do we move the field forward? How do we start thinking about all of these things, predictive analytics, and it being more than just screws and rods? And that was an opportunity that we thought where we could have the industry partners and the attendees who are already in that location get together, start talking about these things, start looking at the products, and start thinking about how they can be impactful for them and their patients.
Yeah, that's certainly a very unique feature, and really adds to the collaborative atmosphere, which is so necessary for innovation. What are some of brand new changes that you made to this year's meeting?
Well, so we did a couple things. When we reviewed abstracts, one of the first things we did is we added a special section to focus specifically on innovation. And so not just looking at the quality of the abstract and the quality of the methods, and the abstract itself, but also how innovative is this? How novel is this? And how is this going to be important for us, for our patients, and for our meeting? And so we really emphasized that when we were selecting abstracts all together, and that I think is you'll see a huge impact on that at the meeting itself. Additionally, we changed around some of the topics in some of the larger categories. And so, as you can imagine, some of the categories are the same. Adolescent idiopathic scoliosis, we're going to talk about cervical deformity, but we also added specific categories on machine learning, predictive analytics, and AI. And with that, I think you're going to see this flavor of innovation and new technology and new procedures and new ideas about how we treat the same problems that we've been treating for some time.
I see. And since you've been on the IMAST committee for a while, I'm sure you've seen sort of the evolution of the types of abstract and research that's been submitted. Have you noticed a trend that's similar to what you've sort of set up? Like, did you see more innovation or machine learning type of research projects this year compared to years past?
Yeah, it does. It does seem that there's, the as we go through these things, you see the buzzwords come through in waves, and we saw vertebral body tethering was hugely popular a year or so ago, and now it's AI and machine learning and predictive analytics, and right, who hasn't heard of Chat GPT and all the cool things it can do, and it's writing our recommendation letters and all the rest. And so it's really thinking about how do we harness this new technology, which is happening so quickly and around us in so many different ways, and then bring it to our meeting so we can have frank discussions about it and talk about what's going to work, what's not going to work, what's not going to work for surgeons or patients. And our field is quite unique in spine surgery in particular. And so how these things are going to affect us, I think, is critical for us to have an open dialogue in a meeting and talk about how it can help us or may potentially how it might also harm us, and how can we be careful about using this new technology to help our patients.
Yeah. And certainly other medical fields have started exploring these same topics and research paths as well. So I'm glad we're as spine surgeons are also hopping on this train. Speaking of other medical fields,
we're trying to anyway.
Yes, and we're smart people. We'll figure it out. But also,
I hope so.
Yeah, and speaking of collaboration with other medical fields, this year we're going to have the first ever IMAST keynote speaker, who is Dr. Asatina Sacco, who's actually a medical oncologist. So tell me what kind of inspired the creation of this keynote speaker position, and also why Dr. Sacco was chosen.
Yeah, I think this is really the brainchild of both Marinus DeCluver and Mike Kelly, and I, and sitting around talking with one another about how to refresh their meeting and make it more exciting. And what we thought was, we've been talking a lot about cell senescence, and what happens with understanding the age of patients and frailty, and what happens to those cells as we get older. And so Dr. Sacco is an expert in this at UCSD in San Diego, and so she's a local. And we really wanted to bring her aboard to start thinking about how are people thinking about cell senescence outside of our field, and how can we take that, leverage that information, and bring it into spine and make it more informative for us and our patients. And so she's really on the cutting edge of thinking about the cellular aging And I hope that her keynote talk will be exciting for everybody, and that we'll all get the opportunity to learn from her and start thinking not just within our field but outside our field when we look for these to try to solve these complex problems.
Oh, that's going to be super fascinating talk. I'm excited
I think it'll be
to
fun.
attend that. Another new thing for this year's meeting are some joint sessions with AANS and CNS. And for those listeners who don't know, because I think our listenership sort of skews orthopedic surgeon, although hopefully that'll change, and we want more neurosurgeons to be listening too. But the ANS is the American Association of Neurological Surgeons, and the CNS is a Congress of Neurological Surgery. And so I saw for this year's meeting, we're going to have some joint sessions, and Dr. Klineberg, I'd love you to elaborate more about those.
Yeah, we've been really talking about how do we integrate neurosurgery more closely into IMAST and to the SRS. And we reached out to our friends and colleagues at the Joint Section. Joint Section is a merger of in between CNS and AANS. They're really focused on spine surgery, and they've got a wonderful meeting that they hold themselves that's going to be in Las Vegas this year. And what we said is, gosh, how can we leverage the knowledge between the two to put on great programs for our participants at IMAS that have a flavor from the joint section, and then vice versa. And so what we're doing is we're going to have a ICL there. They're doing one for us. We're really trying to help bring in additional neurosurgeons, new thoughts, new ideas, new people, so we can really start, mixing this pot of spine surgeons and really start thinking less regionally and much more globally and much more agnostically about spine surgery, so that we can get it better, do a better job, move the field forward in a meaningful way.
That's really great. And for something like that, where you're working with other societies, how does that start? Is someone kind of coming up with the idea, and then we reach out, or if other of the professional societies want to do something similar, how should they get started?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that in this case, it was actually something that both groups were looking for. I think the joint section neurosurgeon was looking for more input from orthopedics, and then we were looking for more input from neurosurgery. And so it really married very nicely. I think the other nice thing is, since IMAST is in San Diego and here in the United States, that it married itself very nicely. I think we could imagine that if IMAST is next year overseas, that maybe we could have that local society play a role in our meeting as well, to again really think about making this international meeting much more international, and really engaging those societies locally. And so I think that there's some grassroots efforts underway that are really led by the presidential line, that are really focusing on how do we do that better? How do we integrate ourselves better into the local societies and the local meetings, and then again reaching out to neurosurgeons to really diversify who we are and how we think about these problems.
Cool. As you mentioned, San Diego is the site for this year's IMAST. Are there any particularities to the city that you'd like to talk about? It's certainly a beautiful setting.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough place to recruit people to, just because it's always 70 degrees and sunny and beautiful weather and nice people. And San Diego's just a lovely place. And so obviously, in California at that time of year is going to be beautiful. The weather is nice. We have a beautiful setting right on the water. I'm hoping that people can come and enjoy both the scientific program and also really enjoy the location. Southern California and San Diego has a lot to offer. There's SeaWorld, there's Legoland, there's the downtown marina, there's sports. And so it's really a city for everyone, and lots of different things to offer to all of the participants for IMAS. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. And for everyone in North America, San Diego is really easy to get to. And with the format of IMAS now, you get a lot of the weekend still, because last year it was changed from the 3-day meeting to now it's mostly kind of packed into 2 days, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it'll start off Wednesday evening. So Wednesday evening with cases and cocktails, which is a fun chance for us all to get together and talk about cases and do that with some local brew from San Diego, and then a packed day of Thursday and Friday. But then the meeting will end Friday, so exactly you can enjoy the weekend with your friends and family in San Diego and take advantage of the meeting and of the location.
Fantastic. So to all of our listeners out there, we've heard some really awesome reasons to come to this year's IMAST. And Dr. Klineberg, do you have any other aspects of the meeting you'd love to talk about to try to convince everyone to come and join us?
Well, I would just say that it's a special meeting, really focused on innovation and new technology, and we really look forward to having everybody there come and participate and take part. I think it's going to be fun to learn. I think it's a great location, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to learn from one another. And then I hope that there's lots of new people that get to experience IMAST for the first time and participate in what IMAST is now and what it can continue to be. And I think we're continuing looking for ways to make the meetings relevant to our participants and to spine surgeons around the globe. And certainly open to any suggestions or opportunities. And come check it out. I think San Diego is going to be wonderful. And this meeting that's really born on innovation is going to stay innovative and stay exciting and continue to evolve as we move forward.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Hope to see you there in April.
Cynthia, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. All right.
The Scoliosis Research Society is a nonprofit professional organization made up of physicians and allied health personnel. Their primary focus is on providing continuing medical education for healthcare professionals and on funding and supporting research in spinal deformities. Please visit srs.org for further information.